न कल्पते वै यस्मै पारक्य विभिन्न भावाः
सम्प्रप्यदेत यथा विमूढा
प्रपद्येत यथा विमूढा
न कश्चित् क्वचित् कुत्रचित् वा
यतो न कश्चित् कुत्रचित् वा
स्व आत्मानमलं समर्थः
स्वात्मानमलं समर्था
विमोचितं कामदृशां विहारः
विमोचितुं कामदृशां विहारः क्रीडा मृगोऽयं निगडो विसर्गा
ततो विदुरात् परिहृत्य दैत्या
ततो विदुरात् परिहृत्य दैत्या
दैत्येषु सुरां विषयात्मकेषु
दैत्येषु शृङ्गं विषयात्मकेषु उपेत नारायणमादिदेवम्
समुक्तसरो ऋषितोऽस्पर्गा
समुक्तसङ्गे ऋषितोऽपवर्गा
महे अच्युतं प्रीणयतो
महे अच्युतं प्रीणयतो
अस्य सुरात्मजा
भोवासो सुरात्मजा
आत्मवात् सर्वभूतानाम्
आत्मवान् सर्वभूतानां
सत्त्वादिह सर्वथा
सिद्धत्वादिह सर्वतः
हरे कृष्णा कृष्णा
परावरेषु भूतेषु
परावरेषु भूतेषु
मान् स्थावरादिषु
ब्रह्मात्मा स्थावरादिषु
भौतिकेषु विकारेषु
भौतिकेषु विकारेषु
भूतेष्वथ महत्सु च
भूतेष्वत् महत्सु च हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे
कृष्ण हरे कृष्ण कृष्ण कृष्ण
हरे हरे
हरे राम 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 हरे हरे
Hare Krishna.
हरे कृष्ण
On behalf of Ramacharita Yatra, I would like to welcome you all to Sunday morning Srimad Bhagavatam class. I'd like to thank Prahlad Maharaj, Mataji, Sri Gopal Guruji, and Aditya for hosting this program for their place. And I seek blessings of all senior lecturers. We will first sing Jai Ravi Madhava for the pleasure of their reactions.
जय राधा माधव
ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय
We'll recite together.
नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत् नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमा श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्ठिकी कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकी नंदनाय च नंदगोपाकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः.
Hare Krishna. So today we'll be discussing from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 6, and verses 17 and 18. So there are two verses here, so I'll recite the first verse, and then one Prabhuji, one Mataji, and then we'll do the same for the second one. Yato na kaschit kvacha kutrachit va
यतो न कश्चित् क्वचकुत्रचित् वा
Dina svamatmanamalam samarta
दीना स्वमात्मानममलं समर्था
Vimochitum kamadisham vihara
विमोचितां कामदिशां विहारा
क्रीडा मृगोऽयं
निगतो विसर्गा.
Could I please have one Broji and Mataji please outside? Huh?
यतो न कश्चित् क्वचित् वा दीना स्वमात्मानममलं समर्था विमोचितं कामदृशं विहारा क्रीडा मृगोऽयं निगतो विसर्गा.
यतो न कश्चित् क्वाचा कुत्रचित् वा
यतो न कश्चित् क्वचित् वा
दीनः स्वमात्मानम् आलं समारथा
दीना स्वात्मानमलं समर्था
विमोचितुं दृशं विहारा
विमोचिता कामदृशं विहारा
मृगोऽयं निगतो विसर्गा
क्रीडा मृगोऽयं निगतो विसर्गा.
Tato vidurat pariretya daitya
ततो विरुद्धात् परिणीत्य दैत्या
Daiteshu sangam vishayatmakeshu
दैतेषु सङ्गं विषयात्मकेषु उपेतनारायणमादिदेवम् समुक्तसङ्गे ऋषितोऽपर्वर्गा.
विदुरात् परिहृत्य दैत्या
ततो विदुरात् परिहृत्य दैत्या
दैत्येषु सङ्गं विषयात्मकेषु
दैत्येषु सङ्गं विषयात्मकेषु
नारायणमादिदेवम्
उपेतनारायणमादिदेवम्
समुक्तसङ्गे ऋषितोपवर्गा
समुक्तसङ्गे ऋषितोऽपवर्गा. ततो विरुरात परिहृत्य दैत्या
दैत्येषु सङ्गं विषयात्मकेषु
दैत्येषु सङ्गं विषयात्मकेषु
उपेतनारायणमादिदेवम्
उपेतनारायणमादिदेवम्
समुक्तसङ्गैर्इषितोपवर्गः
समुक्तसङ्गैरिषितोऽपर्वतः
So go to the synonyms for twin. Yata,
Yata.
because,
Because.
na,
Now,
never,
never,
kashchit,
Kashchit,
anyone,
anyone,
kwa,
qua,
in any place,
in any place,
cha,
cha,
also,
also,
kutrachit,
kutrachit,
at any time,
at any time,
va,
va,
or,
or,
dina,
dina,
having a poor fund of knowledge,
having a poor fund of knowledge,
swam,
swam,
own,
om,
atmanam,
atmanam,
self,
self,
alam,
alam,
exceedingly,
exceedingly,
samartha,
samartha, able,
vimochitum,
vimoshitum,
to liberate,
to liberate,
kamadrisham,
kamadrisham,
of lusty women,
of lusty woman,
vihara,
vihara,
in the sexual enjoyment,
in the sexual enjoyment,
kirdamrida,
pridamrita,
a playboy,
a playboy,
yat,
yeah,
in whom,
in whom,
nigada,
nigada,
which is the shackle of material bondage,
which is the shackle of material bondage,
visarga,
visarga,
the expansions of family relationships,
The
the expansions of family relationships,
tata,
tatha,
in such circumstances,
in such circumstances,
vidurat,
vidurat,
from far away,
from far away,
paririthya,
parihritya,
giving up,
giving up,
daitya,
daitya,
O my friends,
O my friends,
sons of the demons,
sons of the demons,
daityeshu,
daityeshu,
among the demons,
among the demons,
sangam,
sangam,
association,
association,
vishaya atma keshu,
vishaya atmakeshu,
who are too
addicted to sense enjoyment,
upeta,
upetya,
one should approach,
one should approach
Narayanam,
Narayanam,
Lord Narayana,
Lord Narayana,
Supreme Personality of Godhead,
the Supreme Personality of Godhead,
Adideva,
Adidevam,
the origin of all demigods,
the origin of all demigods,
Sa,
Sa,
He,
He,
Mukta Sangha,
Mukta Sanghe,
by the association of liberated persons,
by the association of liberated persons,
Ishita,
Ishita, desired,
Apavarga,
Apavarga,
the path of liberation.
the path of liberation.
Go to translation by His loving divine grace, His Bhaktivedanta Swami Sripad Ki
Jai.
Jai. My dear friends, O sons of the demons, it is certain that no one bereft of knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead has been able to liberate himself from material bondage at any time or in any country. Rather, those bereft of knowledge of the Lord are bound by the material laws. They are factually addicted to sense gratification, and their target is women. Indeed, they are actually playthings in the hands of attractive women. Victimized by such conception of life, they become surrounded by children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren, and thus they are shackled to material bondage. Those who are very much addicted to this conception of life are called demons. Therefore, although you are the sons of demons, keep aloof from such persons and take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Narayana, the origin of all the demigods, because the ultimate goal for the devotees of Narayana is liberation from the bondage of material existence. Purport. Prahlad Maharaj has maintained the philosophical point of view that one should give up the dark well of family life and go to the forest to take shelter of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Hitvatmapatam dihamandakopam vanagatoya tarimashriyavad. In this verse also he stresses the same point. In the history of human society, no one at any time or any place has been liberated because of too much affection and attachment for his family. Even in those who are apparently very educated, the same family attachment is there. They cannot give up the association of their families, even in old age or invalidity, for they are attached to sense gratification. As we have several times discussed, Yan Mektunaitigrihamedi Sukham He Tujam. So-called householders are simply attracted by sexual enjoyment. Thus they keep themselves shackled in family life, and furthermore they want their children to be shackled in the same way. Playing the parts of playboys in the hands of women, they glide down to the darkest regions of material existence. Anda gobir vishitam tamishram puna punashcharvita charvadanam. Because they are unable to control their senses, they continue a life of chewing the chewed, and therefore descend to the darkest material regions. One should give up the association of such demons and adhere to the association of devotees. Thus, one will be able to be liberated from material bondage. So we'll go through Mangalacharya and proceed.
Hare Krishna. The first page, there is a Mangalacharya verse. If you all can. First page of the booklet. At the bottom here.
ज्ञानाञ्जना शलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरु श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवंश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सागना रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनासहितं कृष्ण चैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सागना ललिता श्रीविशाखाभितंश्च हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगत्पते गोपेशा गोपिका कांता राधा कांता नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैता गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। महापुरो विभु निर्माय शेते यदमूषपुरुष भूते गुणांशो दशशोदशात्मका सोलं प्रशिष्ट भगवान् वचांसि मे श्री कृष्ण शरणं शरणागतं कथा अमृतं सतत पीबतं भक्ति वेदांत मार्गपन्थनं सर्वलोकऋषि देवजन्न प्रसन्नं सर्वलोकऋषि देवजन्न प्रसन्नं।
Hare Krishna. So
Hare
we're discussing from 7.6.17 and 18. So we know these verses have been spoken by Prahlad Maharaj in the mode of, or in the spirit of compassion and spiritual urgency. Compassion because he saw how his friends were too involved in material things, because one, they were the sons of demons, and also they imbibed the demonic qualities within their actions. Also, sense of spiritual urgencies because Prahlad Maharaj, he was only 5 years of age, he was just a young child, right, at that time, but his words carried spiritual realization that he had, which was taught to him by his spiritual master, Narad Muni. And also he understood the goal of our life is not to stay within this material world, but to get beyond it, go back home, back to Godhead, and serve Radha Krishna there. And so here, who is Prahlad Maharaj speaking to? He's not speaking to some scholars or great panditas there. He's speaking to young boys, his own age, right? Young children who are immersed in materialistic culture, who would be just playing around at that time. And so we know that Prahlad Maharaj's teachings are not only relevant for people of those ages, for children that he is just speaking to, they are relevant to all of the conditioned souls existent, even us right now. And so even though he spoke these instructions millions of years ago, they're still very relevant to us. And not only youth, for all of the ages that exist here. Because every soul in this material world is struggling in the cycle of birth and death and old age and disease. And so Prahlad Maharaj, he stands as like a timeless example of how devotion should be and how to transcend like the cycle of birth and death. And so as a brief summary of like the 2 verses that we just read, in verse 17, it describes and actually diagnoses the condition that we as materialistics have, which is that we're constantly planning for something, that I want to do something. In the future, I will want to do something. This is how I'll plan for it. But we don't know that all of these root from illusion or Maya, right? We're bewildered by Maya, Lord's external energy, and we fail to recognize this entire world is temporary. Everything is bound to perish. And so such materialistic persons, they invest all of their time, all of their money, their energy, efforts, everything within all these material activities that it will perish one day. And so this is the entanglement that Prahlad Maharaj warns us against. Whereas in verse number 18, he gives us like a medicine, right? A way to get out of this existence. And he's not saying that this medicine that he's giving to us may work or it might work. He is sure of it. He gives a clear and practical guideline or instructions on how we can redirect this attachment towards a higher purpose. Prahlad Maharaj, he doesn't ask us to suppress the attachment for us, but he says to purify it by redirecting it elsewhere. And where do we redirect it to? To the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Because for us as devotees, we want nothing other than bhakti to serve Krishna. So Prahlad Maharaj's words, they are actually like a mirror that are being held in front of us. He talks about attachments. So let's think carefully, what are we actually attached to in this material world? In Kali Yuga, the Yuga that we're currently in, people are filled with the mode of mode of passion and also ignorance. So Rajas and Tamas. So whenever these people, they come and sit within the classes, hear multiple lectures, or have sadhu sangha, it's actually very difficult for them to understand because these topics are situated in the mode of goodness, whereas their platform where they're situated in obviously are a bit lower. And so when we speak to these people about liberation or about bhakti, about escaping the clutches of Maya, they don't understand it. It's not that they don't understand it, they don't want to understand it because they are within Maya. And so an example is given in the Shastras, is like if there's a cat and a dog, and we ask the cat and a dog, do you want liberation? That cat and dog will not understand what liberation is. It won't understand it. It's not up to that level to understand what the higher purpose is. It doesn't have the intellect. And so even amongst humans, many of us, we live like animals, just simply eating, mating, sleeping, and defending, right? They're conditioned to think that whatever is right for them is actually wrong, and whatever is wrong is right. That's how they live within this world. So generally, humans being in the mode of passion, being in that mode which lies between ignorance and also goodness, the person, they must decide with whom they should associate with. If they want to go to the platform of goodness, they need to associate with devotees. But if they want to stay on the same platform or degrade down, they can relate to the materialistics there. But again, even if that person associates with devotees, unless they meditate on such good qualities from their side or strive to be in that mode of goodness, they would still remain in the platform of passion, or they may slip down to ignorance, right? And we know what happens to those persons who are within the mode of ignorance and they slip down. Bhagavad Gita 14.18 says that those in the mode of goodness, they will slip down to the hellish planets, or even like the animal kingdom, animal life. And so for one person who is actually awake and understands all of this and generally works on controlling their mind, body and words, they begin to rise. They gradually come up to the mode of goodness. And so for that person who is gradually rising, the vibrations of the holy names and the association that of the Vaishnavas, they begin to impact that person. And that's when they start to become like a devotee. And so within this world, there is no person who lives without attachment to anything. Everyone has an attachment. But we need to have, there's again, good attachment and bad attachment. So we need to have association towards Krishna, towards serving our Guru Maharaj, and for performing activities for Krishna. And that is good attachment. Whereas people in general, they are too attached to worldly affairs, to their family members, to women, to their children, to possessions, to fame, to acquiring everything within their life, and that is bad attachment. And such people, what are they called by Prahlad Maharaj here? They're called as demons. So we're not here talking about demons who have like the physical form of a demon, but the qualities. So these demonic qualities, if you possess them, you're considered as like the demon, Daitya. So now let's take a moment to think if we actually have the good attachment or bad attachment. So if we don't have attachment to Guru and Gauranga, or the deities, then we're actually cheating ourselves. Why are we cheating ourselves? Because we all made a promise when we were in the wombs of our mothers as the unborn child. We promised Krishna that, Krishna, when I come outside into this material world, I will remember you and I will pray to you. But what happened when we came into this material world? Maya attracted us, and we were attracted by Maya, and we forgot that promise to Krishna. And so that's why we failed our promise to Krishna. And so those who are attached to Guru and Gauranga, they perform the activities for the pleasure of Guru and Gauranga, and in this way it helps us attain liberation. But for us as devotees, we strive for bhakti, devotional service to Krishna. But for those who are attached to family members, they perform activities for their family members only. And in that way, being attached to the worldly affairs that exist here, they become trapped by Maya and material bondage. So an example that we can take is of Daku Ratna. He was a dacoit at that time. And so he was questioned one day when obviously performing his crimes. He was questioned by Narad Muni. Will your family take all the sins from you as well, or take part in these sins? He went home and asked his family. His wife is like, no, I will not take part in it. That's your job. You're doing this for keeping the family obviously alive. And then he asked his children. His children also did not want to take part in his sins. Then he realized that whatever he's doing for his family, they're not even going to be there to support him, take part in the sins. And so he left everything. And he went to meditate. And so we also have our spiritual masters and our guru, like the Guru Parampara that exists. They've all performed activities for the pleasure of their own spiritual masters. Srila Prabhupada, let's take him for an example. He, even though at his mature age, he traveled the entire world multiple times. He faced multiple challenges throughout his journey. And yet he preached to everyone because that was his that was instruction given to him by his spiritual master to preach within the 5 continents and also to print books and distribute them. Another example we have of is Ajamila. We know in his earlier life he was like a very learned Brahmana, but obviously he was attracted to a prostitute and he left his good wife, his children, his parents, and he began to serve the prostitute. He had many children, but somehow by the mercy of Krishna, he named his last son as Narayana. But at the time of his death, when he was on his deathbed, what happened was he saw Yamadutas. Yamadutas, obviously being the messengers of Yamraj, they had come to take his soul. And because he was afraid of the features of the Yamadutas, he called out to his beloved son, Narayana. Because he was very close to the very small child. He was very old and he was very attached to his small child. So he said Narayana. And in this way, when he chanted Narayana, who came? The Vishnu Dutas came because he had chanted the name of their master. And so the Vishnu Dutas didn't let these Yamadutas take away the soul of Ajamila because he had obviously chanted Narayana. And so this way, the Yamadutas went. But the Vishnu Dutas, thank you. The Vishnu Dutas also didn't take the soul of Ajamila because he had chanted the name of Narayana in a materialistic way. He had called it to call his son, and he didn't have the devotion towards Krishna. So in this way, they sent him back again. They sent his soul back to his body, and he went to Haridwar and developed love for Godhead. And at the end of his life, when he had developed love for Krishna, that's when the the Vishnu Dutas, they came and took him away. And so when we serve our Guru, we need to know that the Guru is able to see directly through us our intentions and our desires when we perform such activities. We need to ensure that whatever services we're doing or whatever bhakti we're doing, we need to do it properly to please Krishna. And Bhagavatam says that we need to do it in ahekuki apratihata, so in an uninterrupted and an unmotivated way. So going back to the verse isn't saying that grihastha life or family life is bad. In ISKCON, we are like in a cocoon here. We are much safer with devotees around us who are like-minded devotees. So we're in this bubble. But we sometimes forget to see how the material world outside is like, and to what degree these materialistic acts. So we need to cultivate a life that is very dedicated to Guru, to Vaishnavas, to Krishna, because at the time of death, at least these Vaishnavas or some Vaishnavas will be there at our bedside, right? Or again, depending on how much we're surrendered to Krishna, maybe Krishna might even be there at our bedside. Whereas if we're attached to our family, in this Kali Yuga, who knows if our children, if our family members would even be present there at our deathbed. So again, it is the duty of a family member to take care of his family. That's not bad. It's the duty because he's in Grihastha life. That's his duty. And he must put effort in it. But he should put more effort in serving Krishna, in serving Vaishnavas, in serving the Guru Maharaj than what he puts effort in serving his family. So an example we can take it of is Arjuna and his brothers. So they were married, they all had children, they had grandchildren. But at the same, not only they had family, they were also princes, right? They had citizens to take care of. But they didn't forget that they were also serving their spiritual masters, and they were also serving Krishna. So in this world, we're always surrounded by family, by society, by responsibilities. But Prahlad Maharaj, he teaches that we shouldn't be attached. Like while we're doing our duty, we shouldn't be attached to this household life. So we live in a world where in families, so for example, like there's sons, there's fathers, there's grandfathers, they perform activities for the pleasure of keeping the family intact. But whereas if one person in that family becomes a devotee, spends their effort, their time in serving Guru, then all the family members might point at him and be like, you're wasting your time, you're wasting your energy, resources, your money into serving some other people than obviously the family. But he shouldn't, that person shouldn't feel neglected or bad in that way. So when Prahlad Maharaj, he tells his friends not to associate with such demonic behaviors, he isn't saying physically leave that family. He means to do only the necessary activities within that family, and like within the household life, and not be attached to it. So we should focus on Krishna and not just on family life. See, a person cannot fully disassociate from the family that they're within. You are part of that family, or that person is part of that family, right? It's a family member. But what that person can do is associate. So however much he associates with his family, increase that association with devotees. So that small amount of association that he has with his family does not impact his devotional life. So slowly, he can try to not fully convert, but try to convert their family members. If they're non-vegetarians, make them vegetarians. Let them chant 1 round, or bring them to the temples for special occasions like Janmashtami that's coming up. Because forcing, we know it won't change anybody. We need to inspire them with family members. So inspire them. So 2 things can happen that way. Either one, which is a good thing, again, both are either good things for the devotee. 1, they'll become devotees, or 2, they won't accept it and they'll leave you alone. We need to remember that in the end, each and every one of us sitting in the room and our family members, we're individual souls. We have different relationships with Krishna in different platforms, different levels. Sometimes we can see that people start bhakti at a very young age, some at an older age. And so that's why we shouldn't compare each and every person's bhakti with each other. And so now the next point is, the Prabhupada mentions becoming a puppet, right? We'll expand on it. In the material world, we are always going to be puppets, and now we need to think of whose hands will we be puppets in? Will we be the puppets in the hands of Maya or our spiritual masters? So those who surrender to Guru and Krishna, they never lack anything, because Krishna always takes care of them. He provides whatever we don't have, and he preserves whatever we have. But a person who is a puppet or has surrendered to Maya, right? They think in materialistic ways, and they're always bound to suffer, because again, they're an illusion. Everything is temporary. And talking of attachment, even though a person he may have knowledge of, say, politics, science, economics, etc. If he has no knowledge of the Supreme Lord, then his knowledge is like multiple zeros without that one, the figure 1 at the beginning. Krishna is that one that gives value to everything else within our life. And so, if you have knowledge of materialistic things without Krishna in it, your knowledge is pointless. And so a person, it's said, who studies Shastras very sincerely, then what happens to that person is that he gains qualities like that of demigods. So in that way, the person is able to perform such great tasks. So look at the Guru Parampara, Srila Prabhupada, our own Shiksha and Diksha Gurus. They have all been empowered by none other than Krishna himself. And so us, we know that all living beings are parts and parcels of Krishna, Mamayeva Amsho Jiva Loke. And so when we revive our eternal Krishna consciousness, we all possess all these good qualities that are eternally present within Krishna, but we acquire them within obviously smaller quantities, but we start to acquire them. Srimad Bhagavatam 5.18.12 it states, Yasya asti bhakti bhagavad vikinchana, says what happens to the body of one who has developed unalloyed devotional service. And then he answers it. Sarve gunestatra samasta suraha. So all the demigods and the exalted qualities like religion, knowledge, renunciation, they start to begin and manifest within that body of the person who has devotional service. And then what happens, on the other hand, to those people who don't have devotional service? So to those persons who are not attracted to devotional service and they're engaged in material activities, they don't gain these good qualities. And so what happens to him? So he becomes the servant of the Lord's external energy, Maya. Right? So regardless of how much he tries to maintain his family, his relatives, or even if he practices different types of yogas that exist, he will fail and always fall into the trap of Maya. And so that's why Prahlad Maharaj is saying, dear friends, if you don't have knowledge of the Supreme Lord, then you won't be of any good to anything. You won't get liberation out of the cycle of birth and death. And so we come again into this world, which is driven by desires. That's where it all starts from. So anything that moves us away from Krishna is Maya. It's an illusion. And sometimes people accept things that are not there. Again, it's illusion. Right? So we get this human form of life after 8.4 million species of life. And so Narottam Das Thakur, in one of his prayers, he nicely says, Hari Hari Bifale Janama Gonainu Manushya Janama Paya Radha Krishna Bhajiya Janiya Shuniya Visha Khainu. He sings with the humility of his heart, saying that I have been born into this material world with this human form of life, which is very rare to achieve. And it's rare because it gives the opportunity for one to develop love for Krishna and go back home, back to Godhead. But I'm such a fool, and how unfortunate am I that I've wasted this lifetime. Wasted the opportunity to serve Krishna, to understand. I've wasted these precious moments. And knowingly, I have drunk this poison of material existence. And so in this way, we have such great devotees, personal associates of Krishna that come within this material world to teach us something. So that's why Prahlad Maharaj is also a great Mahajana. We should take their instructions, imbibe them within our lives. Mahajano Yenagata Sapanta. And so Prahlad Maharaj, he explains those who are Grahavratas, those whose only life is to live comfortably within this body and obviously enjoy the material existence. They cannot understand Krishna. Their only business is Puna punas charvita charvanana. So chewing what has already been chewed. Expanding on this is materialistic people, they always try to enjoy things, right? Life after life, they enjoy the same things again and again, and even though that they're failing, they still strive for happiness, but they don't get that happiness. And so what happens to these people? Anda gobe vishatam tamishram. This path of complete failure from the materialistic side, it leads towards hellish life. But again, Krishna is very merciful. There is always a way out of this material life. Srimad Bhagavatam 5.5.2 says, Mahat Sevayam Dwaram Ahur Vimukte. So the path of liberation, it begins when we start to serve associates of Krishna, so devotees. And Srila Prabhupada says, it gives an analogy. So our human body is like a junction. So we can either take to the path of liberation, where we can associate with devotees, or we can go to the hellish life and associate with materialists. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, it advises us who we should not associate with. It says, Asat Sangatyaga E Vaishnavacharya. So Vaishnava should avoid the association of ordinary people. And it expands on who these ordinary people are. It says, Stri Sangi, Eka Asadho, and Krishna Abhakta Ara. So those who are not devotees of Krishna, and those who are very materially attached to women, they should abandon their association. And now we'll look at this story of Yamuna Acharya, who obviously will expand on all these things and tell the importance of Vaishnava association. So Yamuna Acharya, he was born around 1918 AD in Madurai, South India. In the capital, so at that time, there were the rulings of the Pandya kings. And so what happened was his grandfather, his name was Nathamuni, who was a very well-known scholar at that time. And he was very righteous for his time, and he had mystic abilities. He had a son, so Nathamuni had a son named Ishwaramuni. So Ishwaramuni, once when he was married off, so Ishwaramuni, his wife and his parents, they all went to Vrindavan, obviously for pilgrimage, Vrindavan. So once they came back, Ishwaramuni's wife, she gave birth to a son. And Nathamuni, what he did was, in memory of the Yamuna river that flows within Vrindavan, he named the grandson as Yamuna, so Yamuna Acharya. And so what happened was, unfortunately, a few years down the track, Ishwaramuni, he passed away. And this means that he left his widow wife there. And hearing this, Nathamuni, obviously being a bit depressed that his son had left the body, he renounced life, and he himself became a sannyasi. And so Yamunacharya, he was left in the care of his mother and his grandmother, but they were very poor at that time. And so growing up at the age of 5, Yamunacharya, he attended the school of Bhastyacharya. And so he became, slowly over time, he became the teacher's pet because of his sweet nature, and he was able to memorize verses, memorize everything very, very quickly. And so by the time he was 12 only, he was one of the top students of Bhastyacharya. And so at that time, what happened was scholars, they used to go around and debate against each other, obviously debating in the verses that they've learned, and also of the scriptures and logic. So there was one such great scholar within the kingdom, or the king's court of the Pandya king. His name was Aki Alwan. And so he was the topmost scholar that anyone could find at that time. He was undefeated. And the king even passed a rule that if you were not defeated by Aki Alwan, then you had to pay a yearly tax or you were sentenced to death. So Bhastyacharya, he obviously tried to defeat this Aki Alwan, but he lost. And so he was paying his taxes. But for the past 2 years, Bhastyacharya was not able to pay his taxes because he was poor. And so one day when Bhastyacharya, he had gone out from that school, and the students had also gone to their home, Yamunacharya at that time was still at school, obviously continuing his studies. So what happened was, the disciple of Aki Alwan, he had come there to collect the remaining taxes. He said to Yamunacharya, "Where is your teacher?" And Yamunacharya responded saying, "May I?" He obviously paid his obeisances, respecting the disciple of Aki Alwan. He said, "May I know, sir, who has sent you?" And this disciple, being very prideful, very proud, he said, don't you know who my spiritual master is? He's the most greatest scholar of everyone. Every other scholar is afraid of going to him. Is your spiritual master a fool for thinking that he cannot repay back the debt that he has? Or does he want to challenge my master again, just as a moth goes continuously towards the light or fire? And so in these ways, Yamunacharya couldn't tolerate such an insult to his teacher. So he said, how foolish are you? And how foolish is even your teacher, that he's, rather than preaching about or teaching you about humility, he's teaching you about pride, right? And so why should my guru waste such time with you? But he said, tell your master then that the lowest disciple of Vasicharya will come and debate against him. So he himself, Yamunacharya, was going to debate against Akiyalwan. And so the disciple of Akiyalwan was very surprised and astonished. So he went back to the palace and informed Akiyalwan. And when Akiyalwan heard of this, and on top of that, when he heard that this kid of 12 years of age was going to debate against him, he just laughed at him. He's like, what is a child going to do? But the Pandit king, he was like, okay, I mean, this is a debate that he can just obviously be amused by. So he sent his royal messenger to ask the child, Yamunacharya, if he was faking it or if he was actually serious about debating. So when the messenger came to Yamunacharya, he's like, the majesty would like to have you, obviously at the palace, the king would like to have you and face the great Akiyalwan. Yamunacharya responded saying, yes, I will surely come to the palace and compete against this Akiyalwan. But I have a condition. You have to send a palanquin to get me. And so this messenger goes back, narrates this entire story, and the king's like, fine, we'll send an entire palanquin. So they sent a royal palanquin to get this. And not only a palanquin, they sent 100 soldiers to accompany that palanquin. Exactly. So, they obviously reach Yamunacharya, they get him along. And while they're coming across the streets, there's crowds that are filling up the streets because this crowd have always seen such great scholars, obviously trying to do the debate with Akiyalwan, but they had never seen a 12-year-old child trying to do this. So there were some brahmanas that were actually defeated by Akiyalwan. They were blessing the boy and saying, may you defeat Akiyalwan and his pride, just as Lord Vaman Dev, he defeated Bali Maharaj and made him humble. And also, as they reached the palace, there was a debate between the king and the queen. So what was happening was the king, he said, because obviously he loved this Akiyalwan, he was saying that Akiyalwan will defeat this boy just as a mouse is trapped and killed by the paws of the cat. The queen, on the other hand, she was saying that just as a tiny spark of fire can burn mountains of clothes, this boy will defeat Akiyalwan. The king was actually very shocked to hear this, right? Being obviously opposing him. He says, if you believe that, then make a bet. The queen was like, fine, I will make a bet with you. She said, if the child fails, then I will become the maidservant of your servant. So obviously this was a very high bet, and the king, he said, I will match your bet. He said, if the child wins, I will give him half my kingdom. Right? So this way they made their bets. And Yamunacharya, he obviously arrived at the palace, the court. Sorry, I think I'm going to go a bit overboard, but please forgive me. So Akiyalwan, when he saw this child, then he looked at the queen and he said, Alvander, meaning the one who conquers. But he says, Alvander, is this the boy who would conquer me? He questioned to the queen. The queen was like, yes, Alvander, this boy has come to defeat you. And so once they were seated, Akiyalwan, he began, obviously, the debate. He started testing this child, Yamunacharya, with simple grammar questions. And then obviously, the boy, he answered them effortlessly. He was such a great scholar as well. And then he raised his difficulty. But Yamunacharya then questioned to this Akiyalwan, are you trying to mock me or insult me with such easy questions that you're giving to me? Go harder with your questions. there was a time where he reminded him at King Janak's court, there was Ashtavakra, who was his age, and he defeated, right? He defeated Bandi at King Janak's court. He reminded him. And so he's saying that if you're giving me easy questions because of my age, so if you're judging by size, then even a buffalo would be much wiser than you. So in that way, he was insulting Akhiyawan. And feeling insulted but remaining calm, Yamanacharya said, fine, now it's your turn. You start to question me. Then Yamanacharya, he smiled and he's like, I will give you 3 statements which you have to refute. Refute meaning go against. But if you cannot refute them, then you will have to accept defeat and I will win. So if you cannot refute them, then you will be defeated. Aki Alwan, then he agreed. So Yamanacharya, he started. First statement that he gave, he said, you will have to refute that your mother is a barren person. And now just as context, Aki Alwan was the only child of his mother. Right? So Aki Alwan, he was stunned, he was shocked. He's like, how can I refute this statement that my mother is barren? I am the child, I'm present right before him, before everyone. So my mother is not barren. So he remained quiet. Right? Then Yamanacharya, he continued. Fine, I have my second statement. He said, this Pandya king sitting here, he is a supremely righteous person. And now this Aki Alwan was thinking, this king loves me. How can I say that he's not righteous? He will surely kill me then. So he again remained very silent. Yamanacharya went to his third statement. He said, this queen, she is the most chasteful wife. She is as chasteful as Savitri. And so he's like, if I go against this, the queen and the king will surely kill me and abandon me. And so he was trapped in this way. Aki Alwan then exploded and saying, what are you saying? How can anyone obviously go against this king and say that the king is not righteous? And how can anyone pinpoint the queen's chastity? You haven't refuted your own claims. So before I say I'm defeated, you have to refute your own statements. Otherwise, you are defeated. And so his disciples then cheered for Aki Alwan. But the ones who were the other people in the audience, they were like, no, Aki Alwan has been defeated because he has not refuted the statements. But again, there was like so much drama that was happening up there. So what happened was, Yamanacharya then said, please be silent. I will refute each and every one of my statements. So he goes back to the first statement. I asked you that your mother is not barren. So that can be refuted because according to Manu Samhita, it states that a woman who only gives birth to one child is considered as a barren woman. And so because she's only given birth to you, regardless of how great of a scholar you are, she is considered barren because she only has one child. So according to Shastra, she's barren. Secondly, I said you have to refute that the king is a righteous person. And now according to Shastras, the king, he imbibes 1/6 of the sins and also of the good qualities of his citizens. So 1/6 of the bad things and 1/6 of the good things. And now this incident took place in Kali Yuga. So he said, in Kali Yuga, people in general have more sins within them, more sins accumulating. So that 1/6 is actually so much more greater than 1/6 of the good things that the king will receive. So according to this, the king has more sins within him. So he's not that righteous. The third thing is, I said, refute that the queen is as chaste as Savitri. Now, according to Manu Samhita, what he says is that king represents 8 demigods like Agni, Vayu, Surya, Chandra, Yama, Kubera, and Varuna and Indra. And so by Shastra, the queen is also considered as the wife of all of these demigods. And so how can she then be called as a chaste person to the king? And so the court was actually very much astonished by all these things. And they said, Alwanda, Alwanda. So the one who has conquered this Aki Alwan. And so this king, he was very much surprised and very happy. So he was very, very happy, obviously, to see that Aki Alwan was defeated. Then he said, like I had promised the queen, I will give you 1/2 of my kingdom. And he said, because this Aki Alwan wanted to kill you if you were defeated,
you can obviously give him your own punishment. But Yamunacharya, being a devotee, he forgave this Aki-Alwan, and obviously he gained that kingdom. So Yamunacharya, he became the king of half of that Pandya kingdom. And so what happened was, over time, all the neighboring kings, they tried to invade his kingdom. But being very intellectual, he had obviously allies everywhere. And before the other kingdoms could actually prepare war or attack his kingdom, he used to attack them. So his kingdom expanded in that way because he used to obviously defeat them. And so even though Yamunacharya, he was wise and he was such a strong leader at that time, over time he became entangled within politics and material life. And because he had wealth, he had these kingly affairs, he became attracted to wealth, women, and he fell down from his godly qualities. And so, rather than being attracted towards devotion of Lord Vishnu, he became attracted to materialistic pleasures. And so what happened was, on the other side, so years passed, obviously, when this happened. He was 12 years old, and so he came to the age of 30s. And so Natha Muni, his grandfather, who was still alive, obviously, but being a sannyasi at that time, he had a disciple. And his disciple's name was Rama Mishra. So one day on his deathbed, what Natha Muni was, he obviously was thinking of his grandson. He was thinking, my grandson was such a good devotee, but he has fallen in the traps of Maya. And now on my deathbed, I can't do much to help him. So he called for Rama Mishra, his disciple, and he said, Rama Mishra, I have one desire. Please take my grandson out of this Maya, out of these troubles of life, and please help him go back to the path of devotional service once again. And so Rama Mishra actually took his instruction from his guru to his heart. And what happened was, years again went by, and when Yamunacharya, when he was 35 years old, that's when Rama Mishra started to obviously go towards his plan. So Rama Mishra, he went to the palace of Yamunacharya, but he saw at the entrance, because Yamunacharya, being the king at that time, was very famous, there used to be other kings lined up there, other nobles, and he was thinking, out of all of this line, how am I, a sannyasi, going to attain time with the king? So he's like, I have to make a plan behind it. So other than being a disciple, like a sannyasi, this Rama Mishra, he was skilled in Ayurveda, and he knew a plant called Tudu Valu. It was a spinach. So in this spinach, it was like a herb medicine. So it promoted peace and good qualities within a person that ate this spinach. And so within the palace grounds, he found the leaves of this spinach growing. And so he collected them and gave it to the royal cook, who used to cook for the king. And now this cook, so what he said to the cook was, may Lord Narayana bless you. Please cook this spinach and give it to your king. It would be beneficial for his health and for his prosperity. The cook knew the benefits of this spinach because he was also a pious person himself. And he's like, fine, I will cook it for the king. And now in this way, 2 months passed by where the king every single day was eating this spinach. But one day what happened was, Rama Mishra, he didn't come. And so that means the king didn't receive his dish of spinach. And so he asked the cook to come to him and asked the cook, where is my spinach dish? And so this cook was like, the saint who always used to come every day, he didn't come today. And the king was like, what does that person want? Who is he? First of all, where is he? And what does he want in return? The cook was like, I don't know who he is. I don't know where he came from. And he doesn't want anything. He only gave the spinach leaves for you because he had love and wanted to serve you. He wanted to serve you. And so the king was like, whenever he comes next time, please bring him to me. And so the next day, Rama Mishra, he came again. So that was his plan, to go and get the attention of the king. And so he came and the cook took him towards the king. The king is like, I am your servant. Thank you so much for bringing these spinach leaves to me and feeding them to me every single day. What do you want in return? Then Rama Mishra said, I don't want anything in return, but I just want some of your time, but in private. And so we see the cook went off and it was just the king and Yamunacharya at that time. And so then Rama Mishra revealed what he was here for. He says, your grandfather, he had actually left a great amount of treasure for you that he wants to give to you. And so because obviously he wants to give it to you. And then the king was thinking, oh, you're such a great personality. Rather than keeping the treasure with yourself, you're actually giving it to me for me to keep. Because at that time what happened was he was going into another war, but he needed some wealth. So this king was thinking, Yamunacharya was thinking that it was actual physical wealth, but it actually wasn't. So Rama Mishra said, you'll have to come with me because the treasure, it lies far, far away. So he says it lies within 7 walls between 2 rivers. It's guided by a serpent, and every 12 years a demon comes to inspect it. Right? And it's protected by mantras, and only by mantras can you open the treasure chest and see through it. And now, just for our knowledge as well, and because the intention was that this treasure was none other than Lord Ranganath, the deity of Sri Rangam. Right? Because he was resting on the Ananta Sheshnath, the serpent. That was the serpent. And the 7 walls there are the 7 walls that he had to pass over. And the 2 rivers is that Kaveri river that surrounds it. The serpent was a divine bed. The demon was actually Vibhishana, Ravana's brother, who returns every 12 years to pray to the deity. And the mantra is the holy name that actually you can go and get love of Godhead. So that's what it was. But this Alvandar, Yamunacharya, he didn't know the real meaning behind this one. So he's like, okay, we'll get all of my army and we'll go to it. But Rama Mishra is like, we're not going to get your army, it's just going to be both of us. And so they set along the way. And so once they left the kingdom, they were walking and they were a bit tired during midday. And so this Rama Mishra, then obviously they sat underneath a tree and he was reading Bhagavad Gita. And so this Yamunacharya, because he was a devotee in his earlier life, he actually was attracted to the sweet voice of Rama Mishra. And after Rama Mishra had completed all of the chapters of Bhagavad Gita, he was like, I really miss hearing Bhagavad Gita because I had fallen into the traps of this material nature. And so, can I hear from you more? Please make me a disciple. And so Rama Mishra was like, okay, if you don't have any other kingly duties to do that are very urgent, then we can stay here for a few days around that tree area and we can discuss about God. And so that's what they did. They discussed about Shri Krishna and everything. And so after the week had passed by in discussions about Krishna, then the king, Yamunacharya, he fell at the feet of Rama Mishra and said, please make me a disciple. I don't know how I've fallen into the traps of material nature, where I'd forgotten about Krishna and gone into worldly pleasures. And Rama Mishra, again being like a nice teacher he was, he's like, no, you had just fallen momentarily within the trap of Maya. It's just like how a small cloud, it blocks the sunlight for just some time. But over time, it passes and we can still see the sunlight, just like that. But Yamunacharya is like, I don't want to see this treasure right now. I don't want to see this treasure because I'm no longer hankering for wealth. But Rama Mishra is like, I promised your grandfather, so I have to take you to this treasure. And so in this way, they made it to the temple of Lord Ranganath. They passed through all the river of Kaveri. They passed through also the 6th, not the 7th one. They passed through the 6 walls, the gates of the temple, and they came to the 7th one. And along the way, they were reciting Bhagavad Gita. And so Rama Mishra, he came to the 8th verse of the 12th chapter, where it says, Mayeva manadasva, mayi buddhim nivishaya, nivishashyasi mayeva, ata utam nasamshaya. So it says, Krishna says, just fix your mind upon me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and engage all your intelligence in me. And thus you will live in me forever, or without a doubt. And so when Yamunacharya heard this verse, he says, alas, I have wasted all these years against material or worldly affairs. And so, when they came to the last door, he fell at the feet of Ranganath. And so he saw that this was the treasure. This was the treasure that his grandfather had kept for him. And so, again, he didn't go back to his kingdom. He was like a devotee at the end of his life. He gave his kingdom away, and again, he became a devotee. Sorry, let's go into the last part. So what is the power of a guru and Vaishnava. His Holiness Radha Swami Guru Maharaj, he mentioned Guru's words being reminded to us by great devotees keeps us in proper direction. Because in every way or another, from within and without, there's Maya who's always trying to distract us. And so we shouldn't take devotee association for granted. Srimad Bhagavatam also says that any association we can take for free. We can take a person who is drunk, we can take their association for free, and we can take a devotee's association for free. But again, you have to be very fortunate to have the association of devotees. Some people, millions of lifetimes later, they cannot have the association of devotees or understand its association. And so just as we've come into this very human form of life, we should serve Vaishnavas accordingly. And so we'll end the class here. Sorry, I went a bit overboard. And please forgive me if I've made any offenses, and please correct me likewise. Hare Krishna. Srimad Bhagavatam ki
Jai.
Jai Shri Radha Gopinath ki Jai. Shri Prabhupada ki Jai.
Her Grace Mohi Gopi Dasi ki
Jai.
Jai.